Welcome, everyone, to the HerStory podcast, presented by Chamber Fayetteville and produced and sponsored by Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison.
And I am another one of your hosts, Angela Belford.
So, Angela, what is this podcast about?
I'm really excited about this podcast because what we're doing is we're leading up to an event that Chamber Fayetteville started last year called Women of All Generations, and it will be held in June. And if you're listening to this after June 2026, we're happy that you're here. But this kind of got started because of that event is coming up. And, it's a half-day event. And you meet people and you hear this teeny bit of their story, and then you just want to know more. And so what we've tried to do with this podcast is get to know a few of the people that are here making Fayetteville great. It's super exciting for us because so often in my marketing work, for sure, I have to promote all of Northwest Arkansas, and we're a very regional place. So it's very fun to get to really highlight the rock stars of Fayetteville. And so what we want to do is, our culture, we hear a lot of history, his story. But what we want to do in this podcast is we want to tell her story. And we'll be interviewing people that are really kind of important, air quotes, in our community. They play a role in our community that our society has decided is a very important role. Or we'll be interviewing people that are maybe early in their career, or maybe society wouldn't give them the most glamorous title and be impressed by them. We want to tell a range of stories.
Well, and I think that especially when, you get the quote accolades from the world, there are the everyday people, you and me, really, and those like us that are making things happen and are building businesses, are bringing communities together, are showing up for even just their families that are making a difference. And within this podcast, similar to the event that Chamber Fayetteville is hosting in June, we're featuring women of all generations. We very specifically have a list of women who are both early 20s to late 70s, all throughout, because we want to talk to people not just from one decade, but to all of the generations. Before we keep going too much farther, though, yeah. Angela, who are you? If somebody's listening to this podcast and they don't know who you are, can you give us like a quick 30, 60 seconds about who you are?
Yeah, I am a longtime Fayetteville resident. I kind of joke and say that if your name is on the sidewalk for University of Arkansas and two of your children's names are also on the sidewalk, you're from here now. My husband, however, is Canadian, so he's like, no, I'm not. I'm from Canada. But I also love to say that I grew up in Fayetteville because I promise you when I was 18 and I got here, I was not grown up yet. Finished raising myself. So in the community, I am known most notably as the co-owner of the Belford group. I am known most recently as the co-founder of Be Freaking Awesome. I have had a podcast with my fabulous daughter, Sami Kinnison, for the last 4.5 years. And then about 4 months ago, we turned that into a business. And I have written 2 books as of the beginning of this podcast. And by the end of the podcast, I will have published 3 books. So by the time we're at the event in June, I will have my 3rd book on the shelf. I do a lot of coaching, especially executive coaching for people who are looking to be better speakers, people who are transitioning in their business. So it could be that they bought the business from their parents or from someone else, and they've got a new level of leadership. And then the Belford Group is a marketing agency, and we have, I think, 10 to 12 employees, and depending on when the interns are on staff. So do a lot of work around building community, building businesses, building people, growing people up, and really want to just contribute well to why Northwest Arkansas is awesome. Sami, why don't you tell everyone about you?
So I am better than Angela, a born and raised Fayetteville native.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. Not better.
You're welcome.
Exactly. So my parents met at the University of Arkansas, and then I stayed here when I was going to go to college. I tried to go anywhere but here, but as my mom so astutely pointed out, quote, anywhere but here, end quote, does not have a college application. And so as I started touring other places, it really brought to light just how amazing Fayetteville is and the University of Arkansas is. And so stayed here, met my husband, had our kiddos here, and continuing the tradition, if you will. I am a communication coach and professional development facilitator. And so I like to work with teams to improve their communication skills, improve their ability to regulate their nervous system, and to sort of uplevel their resilience and be able to face whatever it is that might come their way within their work. I've also been involved with TEDx Fayetteville for the past, 7, 8 years now. 4 or 5 events, and then good number of years. So I've been doing that work. And let's see, I ride bikes, I play board games. I don't know. Those are some of the things about me.
You also have a good, cool connection to Chamber Fayetteville, part of Leadership Fayetteville.
Oh, yes. Yes, I was a part of Leadership Fayetteville, class 35, aka the best class. And now it's on the internet. So everybody else who says their class is the best is wrong, because mine is now factually proved as, of course, of this podcast. In any case, I got to do that my first year that I worked for the Belford group. And what was really, really neat, being a Fayetteville native, I learned so much that I genuinely didn't think I was going to learn that much about Fayetteville. I was like, no, I know all there is to know about it. And it's not true. Yeah, even having been here my entire life, there were still so many things that I got to learn beyond just people to connect to, because the people are changing all the time. There's still a lot of history that I wasn't aware of. So that was a really great opportunity to get to be a part of. So Angela, which we'll clarify for people, when we're in work mode, I sometimes call her Angela. When we're at home mode, I wish I called her mom, but I don't. I call her what my kids call her, which is Lala. So Angela, we're in work mode. When Shannon called you and said, actually, I think she pulled you aside at a networking event.
Yeah.
And when she started talking about the HerStory podcast, what made you say yes to being the podcast producers for this?
So here's what's funny is that I'm a yes and girl. And before Shannon was at the chamber, she actually did contract work with us. She had a full-time job, but she's like, look, I got capacity. I really would like to learn something new so that my next generation of, I'm really young. I want to learn something new. So she worked for us for a couple of years, and so we yes and each other. We've been friends for a very, very long time. She said, hey, I want to do these like videos where we interview the panelists that are going to be on the stage and kind of expand on their story. And then I think it might be neat if we did a few more videos of people kind of around the community. Like, what do you think about that? I'm like, oh, we'll totally turn this into a podcast. It'll be a limited run, and we'll interview people, and we'll get their story, and we'll publish it for you. And she's like, whoa, 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 wait, what? Like, you'll do everything? And I was like, yeah, I mean, podcasts, we do that. We have over 200 episodes ourselves. We produce another podcast for one of our clients. I did what I call a limited edition podcast. Somebody goes 50 episodes. It's not a limited edition. Anyway, I did a 50 episode podcast last year. So we do it. This is how we know how to tell stories really well. And she got super excited. And so then by the time she and I met, she was like, oh, okay, let's expand this. Let's interview people from different generations. We want people from different, just backgrounds, different life experiences. We didn't want a bunch of people that all looked the same and that, had the exact same experience. We wanted to show off because Fayetteville gets kind of a rap for not being super diverse. And I get, compared to some other places on the planet, we are not. But there is a good amount of diversity of thought process here in Fayetteville. And so I just really am excited that we are able to use the resources we have, use the expertise that we have, 5 years ago, that would have felt like really hard to do that. And even if we didn't have some of the interns and wonderful staff that we do at the Belford group, we would probably still be kind of hard. But we luckily have some great resources. And so it's really fun to get to share our resources to elevate women. I like to say all the time, because I have a ton of privilege as a middle-aged white woman in America, I have a megaphone a lot, and I love to hand my megaphone and hold it in front of people that need to really have their story and their experience lifted up. So that's one of the most, for me, the most fun part of this experience.
I like it. Okay, why women? What about women's stories makes you excited?
Well, golly, I really don't want to tell this cynical part of my brain, but I would tell you that back in my 20s, I bought a software company that was in the middle of doing law enforcement software. So let's think this through. This is the early 2000s. Law enforcement, very, very traditionally male dominated. Like the only women were in admin staff positions, and then in um, software technology, also very male dominated. So I was in this double male dominated role and did well. I mean, we did very well for several years. And I just zigged when people zagged. I was able to be fun and friendly and knowledgeable and crazy smart and think things through and help people. And so I would have said, oh, yeah, the good old boy network, I leverage it to my advantage. And as I've gotten older, it's super strange to me that I feel less like that than ever before. And so I pretty regularly, like I would say at least on a monthly basis, experience situations where um I have situations where you have, if you're in with a lot of men, then sometimes you gotta, I've literally called somebody else that's going to be in the room and said, hey, I need you to share this idea because they won't hear it from me. And that's annoying. That's frustrating. It makes me want to punch people in the face, which I hate because I've done a lot of work on my nervous system to try and calm myself down. I want to live wholehearted. I don't want to live angry. So it's very hard to, at this stage, like 25 years later, feel like either it's worse or I'm more aware. I don't know which that is. It's fun because I've heard a few of the stories. You've got to interview some people. I've gotten to interview some people. We've already got kind of started. And so it's fun to hear how some of the younger people don't feel like it's a story, that it's a big deal. They don't feel the male-female role. I'm encouraged. I see people your age and the marriages are a lot more equal. There's a lot more sharing of household work and childcare work, and it is better than it's ever been on that side. I think I also may be just closer to having to work with a lot more baby boomers. So that age of males just haven't got the memo all the way. So anyway, I think the reason why I loved hearing women's stories is because I think our society just forgets. You'll have the token one woman on a board in a room. And so being able to lift those up is really, I'm looking forward to it. Another thing that I hope people get from this podcast is, I know I'm beating the drum of connection, but I hear a lot of people say in Northwest Arkansas that it's very cliquey. That Northwest Arkansas is very, especially Fayetteville, it's very cliquey. And what I've observed is that when I go to an event, if I have had, like, I've been going busy, 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 I am more likely to see people that I haven't seen in a while and want to talk to the people I know. That to me is different than being cliquey, because I really genuinely want to catch up with people that I haven't seen in a while, or I was in the middle of a conversation with somebody that I wanted to continue that conversation. And so I think that the idea that it is cliquey, I think is an idea that we need to put to rest, because I think there's not necessarily always that it's, I think sometimes perception is different than actual reality. So,
And yet, for some people, their perception is their reality. And so where I would just provide encouragement, number one, if you want to listen to a podcast where we talk all about these kinds of things, go check out our podcast, Be Freaking Awesome. But is there something you can change within yourself to approach it? Can you assume positive intent? Could you walk into a room and say to myself, I belong here. I belong in this room with these people, and I'm going to believe that that's true, rather than walk in and look for evidence that it's cliquey, that there are people don't want me here, they don't want new people. Because I think that the opposite could be true, that you could look in and say, wow, look at how many friendships there are in this room.
Right.
I can't wait to get in on that and to get in on this friendship game. So
yeah,
maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, we'll go with that.
I like it.
So another question that you don't have to have an answer to, I'm going to ask it and then maybe I'll answer it depending on what you think. Why should men listen to this podcast as well? I think about, in particular, conversations I hear on things like men's and women's sports, and men's sports are more exciting to watch because they're faster pace, or blah, blah, blah. And this is why we don't want to watch women's sports. Whatever it might be, why should men also listen to the HerStory podcast?
Well, number one, men wouldn't be here without women. Hate to break it to you. But
literally, metaphorically, figuratively, in all the ways.
You wouldn't be here, number one. Number two, many of you have daughters, have mothers, have sisters, and
have wives.
And have wives, yeah, for sure. And the opportunity to hear a woman's perspective, like, I want to send this episode to a couple of people in my life and be like, this is how you make people feel. This is how this is the scenario. Nobody gets to make me feel anyway, right? But this is the scenario that you set up. And here's the thing, is that one of the situations particularly, this person would swear they are pro-women. They have a lot of women in leadership, and they don't even realize that they do it. They don't realize that they take men's voices seriously. For women, we have to yell at him for him to hear us. And so I want them to recognize that. I think that also we're all humans, right? And so, like, while I say there's a difference between men and women, we're more alike than we are different. I think there's plenty of people that may hear a story about one of the business owners and be like, wow, I have that same experience, except I work with my dad, or I work with my son, or I work with my daughter, whatever. And I think there's some universal truths that we're going to hear. I think there's some really fun stories of how people got to Northwest Arkansas and kind of their journey, their path. You may have worked with some of these people, or you may have seen them at events and been like, oh, I've always wanted to know a little bit more about them. I think it will. You and I on our podcast, Be Freaking Awesome, we talk a lot about friendship. And part of making friends as an adult that is so hard is you have to know people. And I think there's an element of these telling her story where people will have the opportunity to be like, oh, I'm not alone. Here's a connection. When I go to that event and I see the person that is moderating the panel, and I can walk up and talk to them because I heard their story and there was something that resonated, and you're going to get a connection faster, that you're not going to have to go spend an hour with somebody digging in their story to find your connections. I think it's an opportunity for us to broaden those. You also could use this, both men and women, like you could listen to this if you have adult children, say, hey, listen to this podcast. I'd love to talk to you about it, which is another way to build relationship, and it's have a shared experience.
Whether it's adult children or just friends, you could pass that on to somebody that you know.
Yeah, for sure.
What I would add to the conversation is that there are a lot of universal experiences. And so if there are times where you have felt like maybe I didn't belong here, or I didn't know how to get through this hard season, I'm early on in my career and I'm looking for advice from somebody, those kinds of conversations are going to be happening, and you're going to get those nuggets of wisdom that can apply to you no matter who you are and what you're doing. And so see through the superficial part of the experience to dig down to say, I'm a business owner, they're a business owner. I'm a business leader, they're a business leader. I'm somebody in this community, they're somebody in this community. And what are the things that we can relate to share? That's my thoughts.
And you also can be like, wow, I don't agree with what they said.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's also a conversation starter. It's like, I heard this thing, and I'm not sure I agree with what they said. I don't know if I'm not discounting Angela's experience, but I really don't have that experience that men have to hear it from another man for them to get it, you know? Or it's funny because I recently heard somebody who said, my wife, I told her something and she wouldn't listen to me, and then her friend told it to her and she finally heard it. And so I was like high-fiving him because I was like, oh, I have that experience all the time. And so maybe it's just people that are close to us and we just think that, you know. So I think there are some opportunities for connection. And yeah. Now, Sami, you've already been having some of these conversations. You've had a lot more than I have so far. So without giving anything away, is there anything that surprised you so far?
I think that what has been really interesting, especially across the generations, is just how much is the same. I think, I'm not even going to spoil it. Thus far, the majority of the people, when we ask them what makes Fayetteville special, they have said almost the exact same answer. And I think that is phenomenal. And I can see the pattern and I'm excited. Not 100% of them, but a lot of them have had almost identical responses, and they did not see each other's notes or copy from the test. And so things like that, I think, are really cool to see what's the same. And what I've also been surprised by is just how poorly I handle rapid fire questions, because I just want to ask more questions. I want to dig in deep on all of them. So you'll get to experience me attempting to hold myself back from that and sometimes failing entirely.
That's hilarious.
I like it.
I like the rapid fire questions, though. They're so fun. I want to answer them too. That's what I have a struggle with, is that like when they ask them, and then I'm like, no, you'll have your episode. You'll get to answer them at a different point.
I was like, do you want to answer them now?
No.
Or our interview will actually be at the end of the podcast series. We're going to use that to sort of wrap it up. So you guys get to hang on and listen through all the episodes to wait to hear our answers to the questions. So thank you all for being here with us as we kick off this journey for the podcast series. Go ahead and hit subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on so that you can get notified each time a new story gets shared. And I would also encourage you, when you hear somebody's story, maybe reach out to them and be like, this really stuck out to me. Or reach out to a different friend if you want to say, I really disagreed with them. Maybe don't bombard people with all of those, but share that. Connect with somebody. Use this as a launch pad for that connecting moment. And we can't wait to see all of you at the event on June 16th. It's going to be at the Fayetteville Town Center. And if you want to look at getting tickets or sponsorships, please go to the website. It's going to be in the link in the show notes. You can also go to Chamber Fayetteville's social media and website and find all of the information there. We are so excited to get to help share more stories than just the few that'll be shared on that stage, and get to carry the conversations and lead us into that event. Thanks everyone listening, and tune in next time to hear the next story.